In a world facing simultaneous digital disruption and climate breakdowns, the cities are not waiting for the future. They are building it brick by brick, byte by byte. And this September, the world is watching us. Johannesburg's Africa's economic engine and Tshwane are co-hosting or co-chairing rather one of the most pivotal gatherings of urban leaders on the global stage, the Urban 20 Mayoral Summit, taking place right here from the 12th to the 14th of September. The Urban 20 is where the pulse of our cities shape the priorities of the G20, where mayors from the world's most powerful cities gather not just to talk, but to influence global negotiations, putting urban realities at the heart of global policy. At the center of this year's Urban 20 agenda, digital transformation and innovation, and climate action and urban resilience, two forces reshaping Johannesburg's future and that of cities across the globe. But the question is, how do we build inclusive smart cities where no one is left behind? With us to unpack these defining issues, Aubrey Muchela, the Director of Smart City Johannesburg. And also joining the conversation is Mzukisi Khwata, an expert in social inclusion and equity. Perhaps let's start with you, Aubrey. What is a smart city?
Yeah, I think the important thing about smart city, it's basically a city that is vibrant, that is able to sustain its citizens, able to provide safety and security for its citizens, and also be able to provide economic activity that is not disrupted by any eventualities. So you have the ability to have continuity when you have disruptions. And we know technology is very vital in that kind of environment. And I think the most critical aspect that is misunderstood about smart city is taking care of the environment and also taking care of your people and making sure you have people who are smart as well in a society that can coexist with the environment. I think primarily that's what you do with that. And digital inclusivity provides the data that will assist you to achieve that.
What are some of the leading case studies?
Look, you've got the city of New York, for example, that has done some brilliant work around safety, and we're learning from them. We've built the IIoC in the city of Johannesburg to basically try and emulate what they have done. We're struggling, but I think recently we have improved significantly. We've got also the city of Dubai that has some brilliant integrated smart city concepts and engines, where they integrate technology and people and the IoT or Internet of Things, where instrumentation is very critical in this space. So you've got quite a number of countries and cities that are doing that. China, for example, has got quite a lot of cities that are doing brilliant work, and we've done a lot of exchange work with them. And we're definitely improving from our side. If you look at the city of Johannesburg, we used to have about 400 to 1,000 cameras roving around, but with partnership with communities and with business, we're now sitting at about 6,500 plus, which is brilliant because it addresses how you integrate with society when dealing with smart city. It cannot be a government issue. You have to include business and communities.
I want to bring you into the conversation, Mzukisi. Cities and urban centers have, particularly in the developing world, have a really interesting makeup in that they often are the centers of where urban or intra-migration gears towards, and that makes those cities very complex to run. And oftentimes modernizing those cities and bringing them into a place where inclusion in economic activity, technological participation, safety and security are things that are really complex to do. In a city like Johannesburg, you sort of have to change the engine while flying the plane to get it up to scratch. How do we do that with the right policy guidances to ensure that no one's left behind?
Good afternoon, Oliver. I'm sort of more on the sort of climate change, resilience or adaptation side of things. But I think the city of Johannesburg actually has got a climate action plan, which sort of looks primarily into making sure that those people who are coming from the hinterland, coming from all over the world, and often settling in sort of very difficult areas of the city, in flood-prone areas. So the plan that we have actually, tries to make sure that we, come up with with approaches that will ensure that they don't get flooded. For example, setting up early warning systems. One of the studies that we've actually just concluded, or at least building on, is to build early warning systems around extreme heat, and we've actually discovered that this tends to be manifest in areas of informality, and where, for example, we don't have vegetation. So those are sort of the focus areas that we're looking at, and we're finding that actually settlements, or people tend to settle in those areas quite strongly.
The livability of a city is really important for its success and prosperity. And of course, climate impacts negatively or positively the livability of a city, and how you respond to that is really important. But it's inextricably tied to things like population density, vegetation impact, or at least the impact it has on vegetation spread, and of course, more importantly, the resources required to keep a city livable, and to make sure all those who live in a city are able to live there safely and not, of course, become victim to low-lying areas that are likely to be flooded and all of that. Are we doing the right sort of research, not just in South Africa, but globally, particularly amongst member states of the G20, in answering the livability question?
I think we are, actually. I've just mentioned this study on urban heat. On top of flooding, urban heat has tended to be an issue that it tends to kill, actually, or it tends to lead to more deaths than flooding. And
wow, that's fascinating.
Yes. Actually, in the 2003 heat wave that hit Europe, thousands of deaths resulted. Something that actually Europe was not aware of and had not planned for. And subsequent to that, lots of studies have been done in the global north as well as the global south. The city of Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, city of Cape Town have done these studies to map out the manifestation of urban heat. And we're actually finding that, as I said earlier on, that impoverished areas are severely hit by extreme heat. And now the Gauteng city region actually is working on a heat action plan to plan precisely for this next summer in order to provide early warning systems. And we've compared actually this with the city of Ahmedabad in India. So I'm just trying to make a case that we're actually doing these studies not just in South Africa, but also in the global north as well as in the global south, in comparison with other cities, as I said, in Asia.
Yeah. Aubrey, related to that, is a big question that G20 member states and concomitantly G20 cities participating in this have to answer, and that is the question on energy resilience and energy independence, particularly when we have to answer questions around climate change. And, City of Johannesburg has also contributed quite a number of thought leadership towards the country's just energy transition and the policies related to that. How do you hope that the Urban 20 gathering answers the question around energy, not just from a consumption, but also from a production perspective?
Yeah, I think the most important aspect around it is more on the investment. However, when you look at the way we have driven the energy efficiency within the city, with those challenges, obviously, legislation being difficult, and also the mechanism of national and provincial to make sure that regional government can implement this thing has been a bit of a challenge, but I think recently it has been tightened up. So we've done, for example, things like load limiting in the city of Johannesburg to avoid load shedding some couple of years ago, and now it's coming back as an instrument that can assist that. But you're seeing now that we're introducing the solar. So we're introducing solar grids, solar farms, and microgrids as well. What we are driving, we have a very powerful program which is called SMME Reseller, where we're trying to get communities to actually roll out solar within their environment in partnership with City Power, and then be able to feed back the energy to City Power or the other interested parties, so that we can then leverage that free energy that is being generated. Because most of the time, you generate solar, the energy you generate from solar, it gets preserved, or it gets depleted because you don't use it. So when we feed it back to the grid, the communities are able to benefit out of that, and the city at the same time be able to benefit. We're also looking at the waste to energy, benefiting from that. Where there's a project that was started some time ago. It used to be called BOT. Now we're looking at other ways of bringing it back and accelerating that to leverage those kind of platforms. Gas is also another area that we've been looking at to benefit from that. But you have to do it with the communities. You have to do it with private sector and bring back that into the communities so that you can. There's no way that you can implement such big scale programs as Johannesburg or as a government, but you have to do it in partnership. That's the most critical aspect of the smart city.
Mzukisi, is that the best way to put communities at the center of climate action? Indeed.
There's actually a branch of climate change called community-based adaptation, and there are good examples of this. For example, in Tshwane River, there's a good NGO there, called Alexander Water Warriors. They're actually they're very grounded in Alexander, and one of the things that they're doing is to ensure that the Tshwane River, which, as you know, is troubled by perennial flooding every time we've got rains. So one of the things that they're doing so well is to ensure that the river banks are maintained in Tshwane River. So these are very good initiatives, and on top of that, they're also doing waste recycling and working with that community to ensure that the river itself becomes, is well looked after. So indeed, the idea of community is very much intrinsic to the work of climate action.
Yeah. Aubrey, let's speak about innovation ecosystems and the role young people play in that in particular. Cities are, really well placed to be able to to lead on that conversation. And of course, within G20 member states, there are many good examples to take a look at. For instance, what San Francisco has been able to do in the USA is, I think, a brilliant case study of that. But how is the city of Johannesburg supporting those ecosystems around civil society, civic organizations, startups, community-based NGOs, and government and private business to support an innovation ecosystem that thrives?
Yeah, we definitely have a Department of Economic Development, which we're working closely with using technology. We have something called informal traders application that we've been rolling out, and now we're using cards. We were actually doing cards to make sure that people can use that. We also have a Spaza Shop app that we will be going live with very shortly, that we bringing into action. There's another one which is public digital infrastructure that we've been exploring with quite a number of different partners to see how we can actually accelerate this digitalization and support SMMEs or previously disadvantaged communities. If you look at what we have done with the SMME reseller program for data, typically your SMMEs will be restricted from participating in those kind of programs. But if they're reselling it on behalf of the city of Johannesburg, they leverage the infrastructure that we have. They also leverage the licensing that we have, the capabilities that we have. What they just do, they go to their own communities, provide the service to the community and resell that service to the communities and bring that to the city to actually, make money out of the engagement, but start participating in that program. And we're doing that for data. We're now taking it into energy. We're bringing it into water. We want to take it into security as well. If you look at what the cameras that we're sitting with, we want to expand that using communities, where communities can actually roll out their own cameras, plug it into the infrastructure. We want to be able to have at least more than 100,000 cameras probably by 2030, so that we can. If you look at the communities in Dobsonville, they've already started doing exactly the concept that we've been preaching around SMME reseller, to say, take the powers to your hands and then work with the city to integrate that. We want to also bring in digital currency to be able to encourage those SMMEs who are participating to say, let's work with digital currency so that you can exchange money in a very secured and reliable manner, but also that has an ethical behavior inside of it. So this is how we're trying to support that. There's quite a number of programs that Department of Economic Development is running, including there's an investment portal that we have where investors can actually go into the platform and then see what they can offer to the city, and also the same SMME communities can participate through these programs. There's an integration that we're still building with that to make it seamless.
And just lastly, the elephant in the room is that the G20 and multilateral bodies, Mzugisi, has become very politicized. And some of the issues that the Urban 20 gathering will have to address in its summit is some of the politicization around it. In particular, climate action and green energy is a politicized hotbed across the world. How do we answer the science questions without letting the politics get in the way of it?
I think for me the science is actually very clear, and often actually there's not much there's not much disagreement. We in the climate change space we tend to rely upon the international panel on climate change, which does science across the world, and some of the best science actually that constitute this intergovernmental panel come from the countries that tend to bring the most controversy in the room. For example, the countries like the US. Most of the scientists are actually coming from the US, and they are not in disagreement with the broad sweep of the world in terms of the fact that human beings across the world, and in particular the developed world, has contributed to greenhouse gas emissions and continues to do so. For me, that science is very clear. And often, as you were saying, it's only the politics that tend to muddy the waters. But I think the science is very clear. And in South Africa, for example, scientists which are coming from some of the best universities that we have also contribute their science into this intergovernmental panel on climate change. So I think we're standing on a good grounding in terms of the correct science. We are hearing the science also from our own scientists from within South Africa. Some of them actually are also advising the city of Johannesburg in the work that we are currently doing. So I don't think there should be any doubt or confusion around the science of climate change. It's actually very clear.
Maybe
very quickly,
maybe if I could come in there. I think from our side, as a Group Chief Technology Officer of the City of Johannesburg, we're looking at how do we basically leverage cloud technology to basically move away from having hardware and reducing the emissions and all that. But what we are finding is that as we adopt the cloud, there's a displacement of the SMME communities that used to sell this hardware. And we're now challenging the big companies to say, how do we then correct this? But at the same time, we also get affected by the tariff issues that come, the fight, or the relationship between South Africa and America is also posing a challenge to us to say, as we adopt the platforms of Microsoft, Amazon, and so forth, which are more American, there's a threat to say if the relationship is not smooth, we could be compromised. So we have to look at also the alternative providers like China, Russia, and so forth to say what technologies do they provide. And at the same time, we are saying we want to have less gas emission, but we're also challenged by other issues. So we have to manage that risk. We have to mitigate it in so many ways than normal.
Yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Aubrey Muchela, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate it. Mzugisi, thank you so much for your participation in this as well. Just a reminder there that Mzugisi Khwata is an expert in social inclusion and equity. Aubrey Muchela is the director of Smart City in the city of Johannesburg.